Good morning. Welcome both here in the sanctuary and also online to the Unitarian Universalist Sunday service of the Welcome to the Sunday service of the Unitarian Universalist Church of St. Petersburg. We're on the unceded ancestral lands of the Tocobaga and Seminole Native people. My name is Ben Atherton-Zeman. My pronouns are he and them, and I am the minister here. Now, this past week, Hindus celebrated the birth of Krishna, and this weekend begins the Jain festival of Paryushan. Tomorrow is Labor Day. Now, they sometimes get a bad rap, but please remember the labor movement are the folks who brought you the weekend. Yay for weekends. That was Deb Carlson on that lovely flute, and she has, yay, Deb Carlson. She has coordinated today's music and will be performing alongside our own Cheyenne Hala, who loves performing in front of people and is not at all scared. And I am excited to be here along. We have a guest worship associate. This is Emma Schock. She's the head of our bodily autonomy team. Welcome, Emma.
Thank you, Ben. Good morning, everyone. If you want a church where Black Lives Matter, reproductive justice is for all, and housing is a right, you may have found your church home. I have good news for you. You may have found your church home.
Thank you, Emma. And we have 4 announcements today. First, Cheyenne is hosting a discussion group about our topic right here in the sanctuary following worship service. Second, the food collection will not take place today, so I lied to you in my video. It will take place at our all ages service, which is at the end of the month.
Third, please sign up today for the Startup Weekend Potluck on Friday, September 13th. Rebecca has the sign-up sheet.
Where are you, Rebecca?
Yeah, where are you?
Rebecca here? Oh, there's, hi, Rebecca. Sign-up sheet, thank you.
Finally, it is the first Sunday out of the month, so the LGBTQIA+ brunch will take place at 12:30 in Gulfport. Details for these and other announcements are in your order of service.
Now, as Unitarian Universalists, we are a people of diverse beliefs, but we do share a common faith that every being is worthy of love, that what we do in this world matters, and that we are connected to one another and to the earth. So, whoever you are, wherever you are in your spiritual journey, you are welcome here.
We want to give a special welcome to any newcomers. If you are new to UU St. Pete, or even relatively new, can you give a wave?
Hello, waving people. So usually at this point we bring a microphone around, and then you get to decide, am I brave enough to stand up and say a sentence? But we're not doing that today because we have a lot to do. But if you come back next week, we might do it then. We are thrilled that you're here. Thanks everyone for silencing your cell phones. As far as masks, if you'd like one, they are available at either entrance, but we do not mandate them.
UU St. Pete welcomes children and their unique energy here. Any children present may now go to their religious education classes.
And I saw one of them just go. Now, this is the time in our service where we greet our neighbors, but if you're going to offer a hand, offer a hug, any kind of physical contact, please get some consent. And if there's someone here that Please rise as you're willing and able for our first hymn. It's number 298 in this lovely gray hymnal, Wake Now My Senses. Wake now my senses and hear the earth call. Feel the deep power of being in all. Keep with the web of creation your vow. Giving, receiving, as love shows us how. Wake now my reason, reach out to the new. Wisdom of time, suffer thy limit and praise the sublime. Wake now, mum passion, give heed to the cry. Voices of suffering fill the wide sky. Take as your neighbor both stranger and friend, praying and striving their hardship to end. Wake, there's two more. Wake now my conscience, with justice thy guide. Join with all people whose rights are denied. Take not for granted a privileged place. God's love embraces the whole human race. Wake now my vision of ministry clear. Brighten my pathway with radiance here. Mingle my calling with all who will share. Work toward a planet transformed by our care. Please remain standing. I know that those of you who don't believe in traditional God just sort of skipped over that God part. We're now going to light our chalice, and my friend Natasha Milburn is going to light the chalice, and when she does that, I invite you to say our covenant out loud. Now, new folks, the words are in your order of service. Online, they are in the online order of service. If you want extra credit, you can do a hand to heart and then hands reaching out like you're serving. Love is the spirit of this church, and service its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. You may be seated. It's all you, Basha. Yep.
Hi. My name is Basha. I'm a member of this church, but I consider myself Jewish. It's the tribe I was born into, the clan I was born into. I do not accept the theology of Judaism, except for thou shalt not kill. The Zionist administration of Israel does not hold dear that commandment at all. I did not have a conventional Jewish upbringing. My father, we lived in Dallas, Texas, and my father, for good reason, thought that if his employer knew he was Jewish, he would lose his job. So in Dallas, I was a secret Jew. My mother said when we moved there when I was 4 years old, don't tell anyone we're really Jewish. I spent my summers in Worcester, Massachusetts, and there with my grandparents who were openly and proudly Jewish, members of the various temples. Like many, I'm sorry I'm doing this. Like many young Jews, I had a very romanticized illusion about Israel. I wanted to make Aliyah, which is to migrate to Israel, to have Jewish children on Jewish soil. I did not know that that soil was stolen. Almost all of it was stolen from the indigenous people who were Palestinians. Some of it was bought some of it was a little bit, a percentage of it, maybe 8%, was bought fair and square, but most of it was stolen. I had a crush on a rabbi, and there was a meeting at his house, and I went, probably more to see him. He wasn't there. But who was there were some Israeli Jews from the peace movement and who were leftists. And it is from them I learned how horribly Palestinians were treated. This was in 1976. I didn't know. Whatever I say not out of anti-Semitism. I learned from them that Zionism is racism. Because the indigenous folk who lived there were chased off their land. The Nakba, which in Palestinian, in Arabic means the disaster, they were chased off their land. The Nakba forced the removal of between 750,000 and 850,000, people quibble about the number. Zionists think it was a small number, were forced off their land by Jewish vigilantes. We understand that Jews wanted to get the hell out of Europe after the Holocaust. And I think that many Europeans wanted the Jews to get the hell out of Europe, thus encouraged to go to a land where other people lived. It was not a land without people. The Palestinians are not terrorists. It is as misinformed as believing Jews have horns. Maybe some of us get horny at times, but we do not have horns. And Palestinians are not terrorists. They want to live. They want to live. They want to grow. They want to see their children grow up and prosper. Quite the opposite is happening for them. I slept in a refugee camp in the West Bank. This is in 2008 when things were better, not better, but, not good, but better than they are now. And I stayed in a Palestinian home, and I was fascinated by the magnificence of the Palestinians in the peace movement. Palestinians and Israelis and Jews and internationals worked together. There was a good peace movement there. It's almost been destroyed now. I know the Palestinians are just people, and I don't want to romanticize them. But I saw such dignity and even humor, gallows humor, coming out of these people who were occupied with a brutal occupation. A young Palestinian man could be unarmed, just walking down the street, maybe to go get some bread for his family, could be shot and killed. Just like African-American young men and Latino young men here have been shot and killed by the police. Finally, there's some culpability going on here a little bit. In Israel, none. Anyone that gets shot by the IDF is the Israeli Defense Forces. There's no culpability for them. I'm sorry. Now we're getting kafutzed here. Okay, now there is an out and out, in your face genocide going on. And we are paying for it. This is our tax dollars. We have blood on our hands. We may not want blood on our hands, but we have blood on our hands. It's our tax dollars that are paying for all those weapons that are being sent there. We're going to have an election very soon, and I would bet $1,000 that most of the people in this room want the woman who seems warm and kind to the man who's mean and nasty. But don't be naive. The future for Palestinians is not going to change. Kamala already said she will continue sending arms to Israel. She and Biden are not working tirelessly to prevent a ceasefire. They could just stop sending the arms and there would be a ceasefire. I think people need to know that the personality of the president, charming, nasty, does not really determine our foreign policy. Our foreign policy is determined by the powers that be, who are people who profit from war, profit from our imperialism. I think, and most people may not agree with this, that Israel is our most important military post in the world. We may not have boots on the ground, although some Americans, Jews, go and fight with the IDF, but it is our most important military post, and we will not, things are not going to get better for the Palestinians. I really, really hope I'm wrong about this, but I think we will please our government, not us, our government will continue to cater to the Zionist administration. There's never been an administration there that was not totally Zionist. And I think that they can end up doing whatever they want to Palestinians. I hope I'm wrong.
Thank you, Basha. We're now at the time in our worship service for joys, sorrows, and concerns. If you'd like to submit one, but you haven't yet, you still have a minute to fill out a card like this. They're in the back of the pews, and you can bring it to Emma or me, or give it to someone to bring it forward. Can you read the Ben line?
Please remember, this time is not for announcements, but for sharing what is on your heart. For those of you watching the live stream, please type your joys and concerns in the text box.
Did we get a person to put the stones? Because I sure didn't.
Huh?
Would anyone volunteer to, okay, Laura Askew will put the stones in the water. Thank you so much. For each one that was submitted this week. And the ripples that emanate from the stones remind us of the impact of our lives, which can ripple throughout our community. And first, we'll do a stone from Emma Chavi on getting to see her family. She's in the Midwest right now. And a second stone for her of sorrow. Her cat Dexter is missing.
Next, some stones from Lisa Pineda. Lisa says, things disrupting my sleep. Gaza, Florida Parks Development, children at my school in shelter, foster care, challenging circumstances at home. Lisa says she's grateful for good-hearted people, my friends, and my children.
Now, we're trying to do a stone of appreciation every week for one of the individuals, groups, or teams who's done some of the hard, essential work here at UU St. Pete. And I'm feeding back, so let me turn this down. So this week, Sabina von Allock submitted a stone of joy and gratitude for William Cowan, who is not here, but we want to submit that stone for him for restoring the sanctuary's wooden beauty. Thank you, William.
Next, I have a stone of sorrow from Basha for the continuous death of the Palestinians in Gaza and now in the West Bank.
And then a stone of concern from Liz, who is here. Liz's daughter, Lisa, has finished her 6 weeks of chemo and radiation therapy for, I can't read it, glioblastoma. She seems well and normal now, but the tumor will return. Please pray for her. That's all I have.
That's all. I have my one thing.
So let's bring to mind close and hold close to our hearts. Liz, your daughter, your family, Emily, her family and her cat, for William, those in foster care, and for the people of Gaza. Oh, and the sand.
And we have, if you could put in one more stone, just one that seems a lot heavier for every single human being martyred in Palestine.
There are many known to us. There are many unknown who are facing challenges, who are facing health concerns. So please join in our responsive reading which is written by John Motter.
May our hearts not become calloused by the never-ending incidences of oppression and hatred that so many face each day.
Rather,
may we keep our hearts open to the positive efforts of so many people causing good trouble in the world.
may we have the strength to demand and gain the right for all people to have a safe place to sleep, health care to keep them strong, and the knowledge that their lives matter. Struggle.
May all of us find a comforting and compassionate presence in the warmth of fellowship and community.
And let's place, Laura, one more stone. It's for those joys and sorrows that remain in our hearts. Maybe they are too tender to yet be spoken out loud. And let's take about a minute of silence together. Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea, move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me. Before Emma shares her words with us, we're going to have the interactive portion of our worship service. Cheyenne's going to facilitate the kafia activity. And let us know what you need.
Hey everybody. So if you didn't notice when you came in and sat down, there are cards in your seats. If you are in the back pews and you don't have cards, you're not supposed to, but I'll get to that. Promise you're not left out. So for 4,000 years, Palestine has been home to Muslims, Jews, and Christians alike. The cards with green stripes represent the hundreds of thousands of Palestinians. If you haven't already, please pick up the card, as you will be representing the people of Palestine. If you have blue cards, you will be representing the settlers of Israel. And people without cards, again, we'll get to you later. For the purpose of this exercise, we're going to be covering 5 different chunks of time. These time frames are not consistent, and they have been chosen based on different historical events. This exercise barely scratches the surface of information surrounding Palestine, and for those of you who would like to know more, please hold your questions until our community conversation here in the sanctuary after the service. Okay? All right. So, if you have a card with a green stripe on it, can you please hold it up? Beautiful. So you guys are going to be representing the original land of Palestine. Our first phase begins in 1799 and ends in 1946. The first concept of offering Palestine as a homeland to Jewish people came from Napoleon in 1799. Everybody knows what happened to Napoleon. He got defeated. About 80 years later, in 1882, the first Zionist settlement was established in Palestine. Settlers would begin taking Palestinian land and forcing Palestinians out of it. Aside from what Basha touched on, there was also land purchasing. Between then and 1938, Zionists were working hard to demonize the Arab population by making them seem like a threat to British forces. Secret agreements like the Sykes-Picot Agreement were made amongst the French and British, which split the Middle East between the two. And you know what's crazy about that? They were splitting land in the Middle East, but it was the French and the British talking about it. Anyway, British Zionists would then illegally and immorally promise a Jewish national home on Arab land. Mass protests from Palestinians would begin, revolutionary groups were formed, and a Zionist militia was established. The British and Zionist militia's response to these Palestinian protests were violent, resulting in many deaths amongst the Palestinian population. So, with the folks who have blue cards, could you please hold them up? It's only 2. Okay. Well, this might work. If you don't mind just looking behind you and taking the cards from the people behind you. The first 2 rows of people with green stripes, we're taking your cards. If you are able to participate, you do not have to stand up and leave, but if you'd like to participate, if your card is taken, you must exit Palestine and enter the diaspora along the sides of the pews and then head to the back and exit the exercise. So if your card was taken and you'd like to participate, please do so now. Yeah, if we could have your cards, Carol and Lee and Adam. Yeah. And yep, we're taking your cards. Yep. Thank you. You may now enter the diaspora and exit Palestine. Thank you very much.
You and your descendants will never be allowed to return.
Beautiful. So, for those of you who, you don't have to leave. You can sit in the pews. You don't have to leave the whole sanctuary. You just have to sit in the back. Huh? Yep, you do. You are now occupying that Palestinian land. For those of you who started the exercise who did not have cards, you are Holocaust survivors. You do not have cards because your own were taken from you. So, if you are sitting in front of someone who does not have a card, could you please rip your card in half and give the Holocaust survivors half as they now enter Palestinian land? This represents when Holocaust survivors came into Palestine, they were welcomed and houses were shared with them.
Palestinian cards.
If you have cards with green stripes and there are people behind you who do not have cards, please rip your card in half and hand it to someone behind you.
Israelis do not share.
Those of you who are getting half cards, you may now enter Palestine. Please join us by moving up in these empty pews. Also, thank you for participating. Beautiful. This now concludes our first phase. We have 90% of historic Palestine as historic Palestine and 3% of Palestine now taken by settlers. In phase 2, from 1947 to 1949, over 80% of Palestinians in what became Israel were expelled, and approximately 80% of Palestinian land was seized by Zionists. Zionist gangs expelled 750+ thousand Palestinians from their homes, forcing the rest into the West Bank and into Gaza. 700,000 became refugees, 30,000 were injured, and 13,000 were killed. The UN designated a Swedish diplomat as a mediator in Palestine, and Zionist sources assassinated him after he began advocating for the Palestinians' rights to return to their homes. In 1949, the UN passed a resolution affirming the right of return for Palestinian refugees. Israel then responded to this with the absentee property law, which allowed them to confiscate the Palestinian properties whose owners were forced to leave in 1948. If you have cards with green stripes, please hold them up, even if they're ripped in half. Beautiful. Okay, so, Lauren and your pew, could you guys put your cards down? And then everybody on this side, except for everyone behind this little gap, you can put your cards down. Nope, Lucinda, you keep them up. All right. If you are a Holocaust survivor or if you are an Israeli settler, please take the cards that are being held up. Yep, go and take them. Nope, Holocaust survivors, you keep them. If you're a Holocaust survivor, you're also taking Palestinian land away now. We are moving to the Nakba. Thank you. If your card has been taken and you are representing a Palestinian, please get up and join the diaspora amongst the side of the pews or sit in the back with the open pews. Not if you're taking cards, you're good, Pat. It's if your card was taken. Thank you. Could the rest of our folks with cards with green stripes raise them up, please? Thank you. You now represent the 22% of Palestinian land that is left after 1949. So we went from 97% to 22. Moving on to phase 3. If you have joined the diaspora and you would like to sit down in the back, you are more than welcome now. I don't want people to have to stand longer than they have to. So, moving on to phase 3. Now we're in 1950 to 1967. We have 22% of historic Palestine under Palestinian rule, and 78% of historic Palestine is now Israel. After the tumultuous events of 1948, 150,000 Palestinians remained in Israel. You are representing them. However, they were subjected to military rule until 1966. After the conquest of the West Bank and Gaza Strip in 1967, Israel began its military control of Palestinians living in occupied Palestinian territory. So, everybody who has cards left, you are still remaining in the land of Palestine, but you are now occupied, and you can't leave, you can't go shopping, you can't plan, join government, because even though it's a joint control, Israel controls everything else. So nobody moves, but now you're just under occupation. You are no longer under your own rule. Moving on to phase 4. Now we're in 1968 to 1992. Following Israel's occupation of the rest of historic Palestine, it began building settlements in the West Bank and Gaza Strip. In these colonies, Jewish settlers are allowed to carry weapons under the protection of the Israeli army. In 1987, after 20 years of brutal military occupation, the First Intifada began in the occupied Palestinian territory. One person with a green card, please raise it up. If you have a green card, raise it up. And thank you. If you could give your card to one of our folks up here, you are now being ejected from the land. This represents when the British and Zionist forces annexed East Jerusalem. It was a small portion of land taken, but it still was land taken. So now we're down to 21.5% of Palestinian land being under Palestinian rule, under Israeli occupation. We're going to fast forward to today. We have now where our time frame is 1993 to today. Sorry. The secret negotiations between the PLO and the Israel that concluded in 1993 heralded a new chapter of modern Palestinian history. For some, the Oslo Accords raised hope for peace. For others, it dashed them entirely. We now move to a modern-day Palestine. Gaza has been repeatedly decimated for 11 months as the world watches on. For those whose cards were ripped in half in phase 3, please hold them up. Yep, beautiful. Okay, y'all, get out of here. Yep, you're out. Enter the diaspora amongst the lines here on the sides of the pews, or join everyone in the back. Could everybody who still has a card with a green line on it hold it up? Fantastic. So does everybody remember what it looked like when we started? Great. So now you represent the 5% of Palestine that is under Israeli occupation, the other 5% of Palestine, which is supposedly under Israeli and Palestinian occupation. Though again, when it's a joint occupation, it means that Israel controls security and government, planning, all of that good stuff. And 90% is now Israel. I understand maybe walking around and doing all this stuff wasn't what you were expecting to do, but this was just a simple, very reductive exercise to demonstrate to you what it's like to have your land taken. You may now return to your seats. Thank you for participating.
You guys ready to hear me talk? Okay, buckle up. Before we get into this, I'd like to ask all of you, especially those who may be feeling a bit uncomfortable already at the topic of today's service, to resist the urge to shut down. Know that this is not to attack you or to call you out, but to call you in and strengthen your understanding of what's being done in your name. Test your humanity and lean into empathy for your fellow human beings. Okay, ready? When I joined this church, even though it wasn't for religious or spiritual reasons, I felt welcomed. I felt heard and appreciated for my work on the bodily autonomy team. My ideas were supported and praised. I was excited to help build up a strong community network with other local social justice organizers and truly make UU St. Pete an integral, central part of this community. That is, until Palestine, the constant exception. All of a sudden, everything is moving too fast, and we need to slow down. All of a sudden, there's more approval needed before making a statement. All of a sudden, there's concern over potentially hurting the feelings of bigots. More fear over perceived harm while perpetuating and engaging in actual harm. Any mention of Palestine, even in Joy Sorrow's concerns, was shunned and further ostracized. Why could this church easily speak out for Ukraine, but not for Palestine? I originally thought part of that lack of concern from the congregation was because folks thought it was far away, that it couldn't affect them. But even when it showed up on your front door in May, with myself, a church member, Cheyenne, a member of staff, and several other friends of the church, along with about 2,000 other people, including dogs, the elderly, families with little children, and babies in strollers, were kettled, tear gassed, and brutalized by the militarized police force in Orlando for protesting a genocide. Not a single person reacted to any of it. As I continued to learn and unlearn more about Palestine, the occupation, US imperialism, and the intense, multi-layered Western propaganda that's been working and evolving for decades, it became much easier to see why so many people who consider themselves champions of social justice choose to look away from and ignore the century of well-documented, systematic, brutal oppression and suffering of Palestinians for generations. Does this congregation genuinely believe in the things that we say we value? From social justice issues like reproductive justice, anti-racism, queer liberation, environmental or climate justice, animal justice, land acknowledgement and land back, housing's a right, health care for all, ending police brutality, prison reform or abolish it, right to protest, education, anything, and pick one and list it, to the most basic human values, like not wanting children to be murdered, or does it just pretend to? Ask yourselves, is my empathy conditional? What are the conditions that must be met before a human is worthy of my empathy? In dehumanizing others, we dehumanize ourselves. Gaza Poets Society shared this poem by Mohammed Musa titled, "Do You Even Care If I Die?" And as I read it, I'd like you to think about your honest answer to their question. Let's be honest. Does it even matter to you if I die? Whether I fade away in August or July, be it in the twilight's embrace or at dawn's first grace, when daylight kisses the skin, or before I steal moments from you or the florist amidst the ruins. Oh, come on. You wouldn't care if I'm engulfed by my own blood, if my home's ceiling collapses under a bomb's thud, if the tent catches fire with me inside, or if I surrender before the bomb stride, if rubble crushes my exposed chest, making it hard to breathe, if I leave to get bread and vanish like a wraith, if the memory of lost loved ones cuts deep or not, you won't shed tears. Trust me. And here's why. I've witnessed a city bleed under your watchful eye, and yet your tears were dry. Now, we should have a Palestinian speaking to us about this, but in all honesty, I wouldn't feel comfortable asking a Palestinian to come into this space and do that for us. Why? Well, for example, disrespect, interruption, condescending remarks, Orientalism, racist dog whistles. That was the overwhelming response Sam Obeid received from this congregation when she spoke here. It was disgusting, and I felt embarrassed to be a member of this church. And that isn't the only instance of this behavior. I don't believe a Palestinian speaker would be given the respect that they deserve as human beings, which is the bare minimum that we can give another human being, simply because they are Palestinian. The ignorance, both unintended and willful, and blatant racism I've witnessed here, especially towards Arab humans, makes UU St. Pete an unsafe space for many members of our local and global community. And it's well past time we fix that. And that starts with taking accountability. When trying to educate yourself about the oppression of a particular people, don't rely on the information coming from the oppressor. Listen to the voices of the oppressed and then believe them. Palestinians shouldn't have to carry the mental load of convincing anyone, let alone this congregation, that they are human too. Yet they have been forced to, not just for the past 11 months of this genocide, but for decades. Despite all the atrocities, their suffering is ignored and often denied, or worse, celebrated, justified, mocked, applauded in Congress. These are human beings like you. Mothers, fathers, grandparents, spouses and partners, young adults, teens, toddlers, babies, people who are pregnant, humans with disabilities, cancer patients, Doctors, nurses, paramedics, medical professionals, firefighters, journalists, farmers, fishermen, business owners, teachers, students, artists, poets, everyone. The Ministry of Health in Gaza puts the death toll at over 40,000. It's been stuck there for months. But due to the horrific circumstances, they cannot keep count of and verify every martyr. Only the ones who are brought to hospitals with enough pieces of them to be identified by a family member, if there are any family members left alive. With the new bombs being tested on the remaining population in Gaza, there usually isn't. Human beings are being evaporated. The real death toll is estimated to be at about 200,000. 24% of the youth in Gaza have been murdered. Children and women make up most of the death toll. This did not start on October 7th, and this was never about Hamas or religious differences. Our activity today has already shown you that. This has always been and will always be about the extermination and erasure of an indigenous population, the Palestinian people, to steal their land and resources. But much like the indigenous peoples of Turtle Island, Palestinians continue to resist their colonizers, while their colonizers continue to violently oppress them any way they can. I have seen children in pieces. I have seen brave, selfless Palestinian men digging through rubble with their bare hands, trying as hard as they can to collect every piece of a martyred child just to give them a proper burial. Yet the world demonizes them. Meanwhile, the occupation soldiers are free to commit are free to commit atrocity after depraved atrocity with impunity. Glorified for their Western liberal values and hailed the most moral army in the world. Over the past 11 months, I have watched in horror as a literal genocide played out, live streamed to our phones every day for 329 days. And as we sit here right now, right this second, Palestinians of all ages, gender identities, sexualities, occupations, anything, whoever you pick, are being targeted and slaughtered everywhere in Gaza and throughout historic Palestine. Targeted inside their homes, schools, hospitals, churches, mosques, bakeries, markets, shops, factories, agriculture and farms, the streets, their cars, ambulances, designated humanitarian aid locations where they told them to go, the beach, the sea, safe zones, their tents, and inside Israeli death and torture camps, everywhere, either through bombs, bullets, shelling, tanks, white phosphorus, burning to death in fires, crushed and suffocated under the rubble, forced starvation, succumbing to injuries or diseases, lack of access to medical care, brutal and violent torture. The list goes on and on and on and on and on. And we are complicit in all of it. You have to understand, everything is Palestine. And Palestine is everything. When I'm hungry, I think of Gaza. The fathers risking their lives for a bag of flour, their children never to see them again. When I eat, I think of Gaza. The lifeless bodies of children, reduced to skin stretched tightly over their little bones. When I'm thirsty, I think of Gaza. The sadistic Israeli-imposed blockade, keeping everything necessary for survival out of Palestinian hands. When I drink water, I think of Gaza. The families forced to drink dirty, contaminated water for months since the water treatment facilities have all been destroyed and continue to be destroyed. When I shower, I think of Gaza. The thousands of people waiting in line to use one bathroom, surrounded by polio-infested waste. When I brush my teeth, I think of Gaza. The taste of charcoal and ashes in children's mouths instead of toothpaste. When I get dressed, I think of Gaza. The colors of Bassan's clothes, worn and fading, along with her hope that this will end. When I feel sick or get hurt, I think of Gaza. The children getting amputations on dirty floors without anesthesia, because there isn't any. When I get my period, I think of Gaza. The scraps of tent and dirty fabric being used because there's no access to menstrual products. When I hold my daughter, I think of Gaza. The thousands of parents holding the body of their precious child, no longer recognizable. One last time. When I play with my daughter, I think of Gaza. The over 17,000 children left orphaned and alone without any surviving family to comfort or care for them. When my daughter cries, I think of Gaza. The sound of little 6-year-old Hind crying, terrified, bleeding, begging emergency services for help while she was trapped in a bullet-riddled car with her family's bodies, scared and alone until her death. The IOF tank still right there, waiting to slaughter the ambulance crew that tried to rescue her. When I miss my family, I think of Gaza, the families screaming to each other under the burning rubble that was once their home. When I feel lonely, I think of Gaza, the one surviving member of a massacred family trying to identify the remaining pieces of their shredded bodies. When I get scared, I think of Gaza, the thousands kidnapped and held in Israeli torture camps, both adults and children, experiencing horrors that I cannot repeat here. When I feel angry, I think of Gaza, the father holding up the charred body of his headless baby to the camera, pleading to the world to believe them and stop this. When I cry, I think of Gaza, the trauma and pain leaving deeper and deeper wounds that will never heal. When I feel happy, I think of Gaza, the love of life and steadfast resistance of the Palestinian people. When I wake up, I think of Gaza, and when I go to sleep, I think of Gaza. Palestine is everything, and everything is Palestine. Palestinian liberation sits at the intersection of all justice movements. It is both the door and the key to our collective liberation. All of these different issues we care about as individuals all connect and meet in Palestine. Their struggles are our struggles. Their pain is our pain. Their children are our children. We are all deeply interconnected, and we need each other to free ourselves. Yes, we have been lied to, all of us. But it is up to you to open your eyes, look around, and see the reality of what we are all living in. Bear witness to it, then take action. Ask yourselves, do Palestinians meet the conditions worthy of my empathy now? Why does Palestinian trauma need to be put on display for me to have empathy? How far gone are we as a society that we need to prostrate trauma to get a response? One last but very, very important thing to remember as you begin this journey of self-realization. We will not free Palestine. No. Palestinians are more than capable of doing that themselves, and they have remained steadfast in their resistance to erasure, oppression, and genocide, whether American liberals supported their liberation or not. No. The undeniable truth is that Palestine will free us all. Thank you. Free Palestine.
Hard to follow that one up. This song is called War Isn't Murder. It's by Jesse Wells. A lot of people, including myself, consider this person to be my generation's Bob Dylan. And it's not just because he sounds like he's got a frog in his throat. Anyways. War isn't murder. War isn't murder, good men don't die, children don't starve, and all the women survive. War isn't murder, that's what they say when you're fighting the devil. Murder's okay. War isn't murder, they're called casualties. There ain't a veteran with a good night's sleep. Let's talk about dead people. I mean a dead people. The dead don't feel honor, they don't feel that brave. They don't feel avenged, they're lucky if they got graves. Call your dead mother, ask her when she died. It's a deathly silence on the other line. The dead don't talk, but the children don't forget. So in 20 short years you can live to regret that. War isn't murder, there's money at stake. Kelly and Kushner agrees it's good real estate. War isn't murder, ask Netanyahu, he's got a song for that and a bomb for you. War isn't murder, it's an old desert faith. It's a nation state sanctioned righteous talk about dead people. I mean a dead people. War isn't murder, it's the vengeance of God. If you can't see the bodies, they don't glow when they rot. And the flies don't swarm and the children don't cry. If war isn't murder, good men don't die. So in a short 20 years, when you vacation the strip, don't think about the dead and have a nice trip.
Wasn't that good?
Sorry, I'm both your sound engineer and your worship leader today. Thank you, Emma. Thank you, Cheyenne. Thank you, Basha. Thank you, Deb. Thank you, all of you. This was a lot. It's a lot of emotional labor. It's a lot of mental labor. It's spiritual labor. And you're still here. And I really appreciate that. When I heard about the tear gassing, when I heard that police tear gassed Emma, that police tear gassed Cheyenne in Orlando in May, I was horrified. And some of you were here when we did a stone of, I don't know if it was sorrow or concern. And I mostly listened to your experience, Cheyenne, and it was awful just to hear about it. But not as awful as actually being tear gassed. A few weeks later, I offered some of the denominations and the congregation's resources to them both, and also to one other person who is a friend of the church. And those resources are still available to you both. But why did I wait a few weeks to do that? I thought about this afterwards. Because if it was Susan Gore who was gassed, or Rob Sanborn, or Cynthia, I would have been right over to your house. I think we all would have. Why didn't we? Most of us heard about it that week and the joys and sorrows and concerns, but we didn't run over to their house. Is it because Emma and Cheyenne are younger than most of us? Do we thus assume they are more resilient? Do we assume their concerns aren't as important? Do we think they somehow deserved it? Is it what Emma said? Is my empathy conditional? Now, our theme for September is the practice of invitation. Today, I think, is the perfect beginning. These four folks and I are inviting you all to see the humanity in the Palestinian people, to learn about their lives, their history, to act on the basis of that connection. And this can be painful, can be hard. You heard Emma in the shower when she drinks water, hears the voices of maimed, of dying Palestinians every moment of every day. And any of us who have loved know that opening our hearts is risky, is dangerous. It necessitates empathy, and Emma has done this. Emma has let Palestinians into her life and into her heart in such a way that she shared with us just now. It has brought her joy, and it has brought her pain. But again, not as painful as the one being maimed, the one being killed, the one being orphaned. Basha, as you pointed out, this is being done with weapons provided by the United States government. So the least we can do is to also open our hearts even a little. Be open to the love, to the empathy. Be open to the pain that we are at least somewhat responsible for. The least we can do is use the tools at our disposal to take action, to support their liberation. This worship service is different than many others, and it's running a bit long. Why are we covering this in a worship service and not at a rally or an educational program? Well, I've been your minister for 3 years here now. During that time, several of you have told me that I put too much emphasis on social justice and not enough on spirituality. And my answer to that continues to be twofold. Number one, thank you for the feedback. I appreciate any and all feedback. And number two, social justice and spirituality, to me, are not opposites. I don't really even think they're different. As people who care about social justice, we should be informed, we should be active on issues that we care about. But as a religious community, we are called to take action based on our theology because our values demand it. Our values call us to action. Our values of justice, of equity, transformation, pluralism, interconnection, generosity, with love at the center. Our actions for social justice are a spiritual practice. We believe Black lives matter because we are Black. Obviously, not all of us are Black, but enough of us are, so the issue is personal to us as a congregation. We are connected by the love that is the center of those values. We believe trans people are divine because we are trans. Again, not all of us, but enough of us, so that the issue is personal to us as a congregation. And all of us are harmed, by the way, by this rigid gender binary. And we'll get more into that in 2 weeks for our pronoun service. We believe Palestinians should be free, should be safe, should be self-governing. This doesn't mean we think Israeli citizens shouldn't be free and shouldn't be safe. It doesn't mean hostages shouldn't be freed from any side. Just like Black Lives Matter doesn't mean other lives don't. It's not pie. An injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said that. A harm against any one of us is a harm against all of us. Vice President Kamala Harris said that last week at the Democratic National Convention. They may not think like you do. This is my third quote. They may not pray like you do. They may not love like you do, but they're your neighbors, and you look out for them. Governor Tim Walz said that at the same convention. Emma, Cheyenne, Basha, and Deb worked really hard on this worship service. We owe them our thanks for their labor, emotional, mental, and spiritual labor. Thank you so much for this work that you've done for us. One of the many things I like about their work is this focus on the Palestinian people, on their humanity, on their dignity, on their words, their experience. Like Emma said, and Basha said, in other places Palestinians are insulted, lied about, dehumanized. And when any group of human beings is dehumanized, and that dehumanization is justified, that's a dangerous precedent. That makes it easier to dehumanize any group of people. And when we as Unitarian Universalists allow that othering, we do that at the expense of our values, of our theology, of our humanity. Emma and Cheyenne, I'm so sorry that the police tear gassed you both. And I wish I hadn't waited to offer you those services. What hurts you hurts me. Hurts us all, and I'll try not to forget that. in the future. We are connected by this love that is the center of our values. And I am sorry that that 6-year-old girl, Hind, was left crying in the car with the bodies of her family. What hurts Hind hurts us all, hurts me. I'll try not to forget that in the future. We are connected, Hind and me, Hind and us, by our love. That's the center of our values. Who was there with me at the St. Pete Pride Parade in the float? Yes, several of you were there. That day I dressed in a clerical collar and held up this sign that Natasha made for me at our house. It says, "Bless you," for those of you who can't read it. Many folks wearing clerical collars have done harm to the LGBTQIA+ community. So I wanted to be at least one person in a clerical collar offering blessings, signifying that I believe these folks to be divine. And it turned out to be a very popular idea. Once we got to the crowded areas of the parade route, some of you remember, we would pass crowds of people and I would make eye contact with hundreds, sometimes thousands of people. They would read the sign and they would cheer like a wave, like this huge cheer would come up. And some of them were brought to tears, and as they were making eye contact with me with the tears, they would mouth the words, "Thank you." I started noticing a pattern, though. So we'd get that huge cheer, we'd pass on by, and then behind me I'd hear like a much bigger cheer, like an earthquake was happening, sound that almost made the ground shake. That's when I remembered. The UU St. Pete float was right in front of the Free Palestine group. Cheyenne and Emma were there. Many of our friends were there. Probably many of yours were there. Those earth-shaking cheers were for them. So, Basha, maybe there is hope. Maybe there's hope for all of us. That crowd at St. Pete Pride was ready, was eager to hear our friend's message of liberation. I hope we are too. Amen. Ashe. Blessed be.
We eat fruit. Oh, is it on? We're eating. Okay. We eat fruit from trees planted long before we were born. May we plant seeds that will bear fruit long after we are gone. In the sanctuary, the offering will now be given and received.
Okay. This one you guys know, hopefully. We got Zombie by the Cranberries. Fun fact, cranberries are from Limerick, Ireland, and you can imagine where Ireland stands with this issue. Who
Thank you. Do we need another hymn, or should we just extinguish the chalice and skip the second hymn? Deb suggested we skip a hymn. Yeah. So I'm going to invite Basha to extinguish our chalice. The words, you may stand if you wish, but you don't have to. The words to our traditional chalice extinguishing are in the order of service and online. They're in your online order of service. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of love, or the fire of courage. These we carry in our hearts and out into the world. Hall, that's right through there. Feel free to come back here to the sanctuary for the discussion facilitated by Cheyenne Hala. Our worship is over, but our service begins. We hope this time together will help you through your week.